I was so shut down. I didn't have a voice and I never really felt like I fitted in. It took me a long time to come out of that. And so it meant that part of the journey, it was chaos.
Like everything else, like going to your GP or your doctor or your therapist, if you feel the energy is different and you could benefit from this, then it makes sense to reach out to somebody like you, Sandra, who can help. Were you scared making this transition?
I've never had any fear with it because I've always known that this was my path.
If you can't love yourself as you are now, love who you were. Am I doing the best for that little inner child in there? Because that's, as mothers, that's what we want to do. Generally, we want to protect. Actually, I don't think I do the best for that little girl inside me. And how important was that?
Children come in to teach us. They already know, and we just don't listen. If they had the ability to work with their imaginations, to connect with their emotions, to not forced to sit behind a desk and have to do things at a certain age, I think we would have a very, very different society.
Hi, I'm Chinwe. This is a podcast where we dive into the inspiring journeys of ordinary women who dare to break free from traditional career norms, defying social expectations to follow their passions towards a meaningful purpose. In a world often captivated by the glitz and glamour of celebrity stories and achievements, it is essential to recognize the quieter yet equally powerful stories that unfold in the lives of everyday women. And so my guests on this podcast are women who reflect the realities of your own daily lives and whose transformations will truly resonate with you. So be prepared to be inspired, because you will be reminded that the things you are naturally passionate about could be your calling, and that we can all experience greater happiness and freedom in our daily lives when we allow our passion to lead us to a purpose. This is Beyond 9 to 5. Lou.
Chinwe, here we are.
It's us again.
I know.
Today we're going to have the most exciting guest, I think.
I know.
Ever.
Super excited.
We love all our guests, but this person is fabulous, isn't he? And
absolutely.
And I think there'll be quite a lot to talk about. But first of all, like we always do, how are you?
I'm good, actually. I've had a lovely weekend.
Yeah, good.
Trained, actually, going down the route of what we're going to talk about. I've had Reiki training this weekend, so being attuned with the angels.
Really?
So feeling really kind of like whole, I would say.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Had a very emotional journey over the weekend, but it's been really good. And what about you? How are you?
I've been a karate mum. So my son does karate and he went for his grading. That was exciting. It's weirdly the little things nowadays that really give me a lot of joy. But I guess it's because I try to be more present for those moments now.
Yes.
More so than I did in the past. And so, yes, speaking of presence, our guest today is amazing. She's always had a deep fascination for all things esoteric and metaphysical. And she's just had a fantastic journey. In May 2019, a transformative experience inspired her to focus her energy and her work towards serving others even more. And this led to the creation of Blue Pool. Have you heard of Blue Pool?
I have, actually. I did some reading on it and it's amazing. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it.
Honestly, I am. First time I met her, I asked her why that name, Blue Pool. And she told me the most incredible reason why. But Blue Pool is a network aimed at promoting holistic well-being for the mind, body, and soul, while nurturing a sense of community and deep, meaningful connection. She is a spiritual mentor and a beyond quantum healer, as well as a light language, energy, and sound healer. And recently, she evolved her practice to specifically sort of focusing on women, encouraging them to embrace their own strengths and step into their power and their light. So this is really fascinating and really, really powerful. She is your everyday woman next door, whose passion drives her mission to inspire others to shine their light and cultivate joy and abundance. Please welcome Sandra Jennings. Sandra, please come on in.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey,
Thank you for
gorgeous.
having me. I feel like I have a lot to live up to now after that. After that glowing reference, as I heard before I came in.
Oh my God, that was just me toning it down, wasn't it? Honestly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
I was
inviting
telling
me.
you earlier that this podcast is about ordinary women sharing their experiences so that our audience and women who are living ordinary lives and who aren't living the celebrity narrative of what a journey would be, could relate and could learn, and we could grow and learn together. So I wanted to start by asking you how, because you had an estate.
I was a branch manager of a local estate agent.
Right,
So,
yeah. And how did you evolve from that role, that period in your life to what you're doing now? Were there any specific things that happened that kind of led you to your current
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was quite an interesting period of time, because I met my current husband in 2014, I think it was. And it was a year after he'd had a really serious accident where he had a traumatic brain injury and he was in a coma. And but it led him to have epilepsy. We met a year later. And then subsequent to that, we worked together running the estate agents. Because of the seizures, he couldn't drive. So we ran the estate agent. But for the last couple of years, I'd really had this calling to want to do something which was more aligned with my calling, my spiritual path, my journey. And I'd known for years that I wanted to, but the timing just hadn't been right financially, and because we were all having to pay bills, etc. But there was a time so my husband ended up in hospital with looping seizures. And at that point, it was this moment of saying, right, that's it. Everything has to change. And I don't care what it takes. We are going to make this shift and this change and start to become more aligned with what I knew was this really deep calling within me that I had to do this. So I knew that I had work to do. I had no idea really what it was, but that was the turning point of having, and I often think that these things happen when something shifts in your life, that there's some sort of circumstances that culminate, whether that's the universe showing us that it's time to change. And that was the moment at which I decided to throw myself into my inner work. I'd been doing it for many years before that, but it was always really my journey. But I knew if I was going to be helping and supporting others, that I wanted to be as clear a channel as I could possibly be. So I started to work on myself to really clear any sort of, and bring myself back into alignment with more of who I was, so I could really tap into that inner knowledge. And that's when it all started, really.
When you say bring yourself into alignment, what is that in your daily life, from Monday to Friday? What does that feel like? Is that a retreat? Is that like, moments in the mornings, a bit of mindfulness? What is that? Or is it more learning? What?
It's an interesting journey, because what it is really, when we're born as these pure, beautiful souls. And we come into this reality, and then we're programmed to be something other than who we truly are. And what that leads to is a point, by the time we're adults, we've taken on other people's beliefs, perspectives, understandings from school, parents, society. We copy, we imitate. That's how we learn and grow. But quite often that can take us away from who we really are. So we could be a really feisty young girl, but are told little girls should be seen and not heard. And so we suppress ourselves, and we stop expressing who we are, and we don't have a voice in the way that is really aligned to who we are. And the journey for me started many years ago when I started to say things, and I'd be thinking, I don't actually even think that. It's just something I'm repeating. And I started to be more conscious of those sort of inner nudges to let go of the programmed responses and start to think, well, what do I really feel is appropriate in this moment? How should I show up? What feels right for me? And so really it's been a journey over years of letting go of those limiting beliefs, programs, expectations, really just stepping into who you really are. And so it's not really necessarily, there's many daily practices you can do, but it's really more about just becoming in tune with your inner compass, your inner guidance.
Authenticity.
That's
what it's all about, isn't it?
Totally.
But actually, do you think that you need that time out to find that? Because when you're busy, running families or whatever, all you're doing is performing a function. So actually, to get to that authenticity, you need to step out of that functional life almost and kind of find the time. And I know I'm currently going through it, as we just briefly mentioned. So for me, it's a real eye-opener, but I need time to be able to do that.
Well, when we talk about time to ourselves, it's probably, and I don't know whether you guys will agree with me, it's probably not, like 9 to 11 o'clock on a Monday, every Monday type of thing. There are little moments in the day where you have had an experience. For instance, you've had an interaction with somebody at work or out in the supermarket, and you come away thinking, well, how did that feel? How did I respond? Was that me that showed up for that conversation or for that meeting? And it's those little moments throughout the day, all day long, all week long, that you reflect on and say, was that me? And in my mind, soon enough, you'll start saying, yes, that was me. Okay, that's good. Or no, not so much. And then the next interaction will then be slowly and different. But the key being to be more aware of your emotions and your interactions and what that means to you. I had a rough time with it as well, being really, really busy and going at, my husband used to say, you go at 120 miles an hour all the time. If I was in a situation where I was in that moment, would daily practices be helpful? How do you fit it in?
And I think for me, there's a lot of shoulds around, you need to find this time, you should meditate, you should do these things. But actually it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no one right way. And I do meditate, but I'm not a regular meditator every single morning. I don't have a regular practice. What I tend to find is that the best way for me to do it is to do exactly what you were talking about, is be conscious of your thoughts and feelings. And sometimes, we're human. We go through the day sometimes busy and completely unconscious, and we get to the end of the day. And it's also about not being hard on ourselves over that. It's okay to have a day where you go, I don't know what happened there. I was reactive. I didn't handle those situations well. And that's okay. Yeah. And what that is just showing us is the parts of us that we need to reflect on and heal. And so often we can blame the outside situation for why we've had a bad day or whatever it is. But everything comes back to us because it's about us changing our frequency, which is when we do clear and heal these parts of ourselves and integrate and become more aligned with our highest truth. And that's a lifetime journey. We raise our vibration and then the world around us changes. So it's a bit like being, like having a TV remote and you're tuning into a certain channel, and depending on what channel you are transmitting will depend on what you receive back. Yeah. And so I've had times in my life where it's been total chaos, in all truth. And this was when I was, after I'd started my journey. But I recognize now I had so much, I was so shut down. I didn't have a voice. I went to a convent growing up, so it was very much seen and not heard. And I never really felt like I fitted in. So, and everybody who was older than me had authority. And so I had so many programs running that when I started to look at what does that mean? Who am I? It took me a long time to come out of that. And so it meant that part of the journey, it was chaos. Yeah. And so it's okay to be in that space and not feel like you're failing, because actually through that, I grew and learned so much. And so, yes, it's great to have those practices. And I think the most important thing, if you want something to really anchor you in, is your breath, is just to breathe, because your breath is your connection to your life force, to source. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, just tap into your heart space and just take a few breaths. And it really helps you just to calm your nervous system.
Tell me about Blue Pool.
So Blue Pool started after I'd been doing all of this, after the incident happened in 2019 when my husband wasn't well. We went to Glastonbury, which is a real place where I feel like I've gone home. And for those of you that don't know, Glastonbury is a town in the UK where it's a very spiritual centre. It's not like anywhere else I've ever been. And so when I go
not
home,
Glastonbury, the concert, the music
this
concert.
This is the town.
I didn't realise that.
Oh, it's incredible.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
There's a place, there's the tour, which you may have seen, and that's a very sacred site. It's actually the heart chakra of the world.
Really?
And so you've got all of these crystal shops, and so many healers live there. It's a very unique society. It's a place of real non-judgment.
Lovely.
Incredible place to be. It's definitely a place to go if you really want to be accepted for exactly who you are.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And so I'd gone down there with Steve, and we were just having a wonderful time and saying, there's just such an incredible community here. But when we go home, where is it?
But
it's not there. So we thought, well, why don't we make one? So that's what happened. So so we came home, and because I'd been on this journey for some time, I had a lot of connections that were fairly local. So I phoned everybody and said, shall we all get together and create this community? And that was 5 years ago. And we had 2 live events, and then of course everything locked down. And so it went online. And then during that time, I really started to evolve my own gifts. They started to really come to the forefront. And so I almost grew within Blue Pool. It was like the framework for me to expand and grow and find my own voice. Because I could find my voice for others. I wasn't so good at finding my voice for myself.
We're all very guilty of that, aren't we?
Yeah.
We can, sing the praises of everybody else around us, and they go, and you? Oh, no, I'm just me.
Exactly.
Squash us, don't we?
Yeah. And when I started to surround myself by people who really wanted to nurture each other, we have all grown within that space because of the support we've given each other. And it's been a community of a lot of different holistic therapists, but also those on their spiritual journey who all know at some point potentially they may transition from a more mainstream role into something which is more holistic, or not. It may just, because a lot of people come along just purely because they love the environment, they love being in that energy. So
you have both healers and spiritualists, and also people who are exploring their awakening and their journey.
Exactly.
And that's just perfect. That's just perfect, because what you said there about having a community that helps kind of bring out certain aspects of you is really important, isn't it? If you want a karma, awakening, you just need to surround yourself with people who are like that. I think that's one thing that we don't often do, is actually consciously seeking out a space, the people, a community that fosters what we want to be, isn't it? And I think it's incredible. You gave us a sound. What's the word?
It was like an activation.
An
healing.
activation healing. That was nice. That was really nice, right? I didn't expect to, because I don't know. You guys probably know I am medical, traditional medicine, but that was nice, right? Which kind of drew us into our core. I love the way that you referenced the Mother Earth. And then the more I was doing it, the heavier I felt centered, right? Like it was really
Grounded.
very nice. Yes, right? I wanted to take you home with me. I take Sandra along. That was very nice. And you have to have coaching for that, isn't it? You have to learn how to be able to do that to kind of...
Yeah, it's interesting because the actual dialects that I use, which is light language, it's something that just opened up within me. I just went to somebody for healing who also spoke light language. And she said to me, you're going to be doing this in a minute. And I was sort of looking at thinking, I'm not sure about this.
Yes.
But she was very psychic. And she said, just start toning. And I just felt this energy just anchor in. And I was doing it. But I recognized that I'd been to Egypt in 2011. There was a portal, to the 11-11-11 portal, which was a very spiritually powerful time. And when I was in Egypt, I had a big awakening. There was one night where I had this experience of all sorts of things happening. And a couple of days later, I was in the King's Chamber, and there's a big sound healing. I thought it was a sarcophagus at the time because it's this big box, and but people were getting in it, but I didn't really want to get in it. So I was standing at the head of it, and people were saying to me, what are you doing with your hands? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know I was doing anything. And what I recognized was that was the point where my light language activated. And if you believe in past lives, I really feel strongly that I was very connected to ancient Egypt, and going to that land, going to that space activated and brought it back. And then I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, okay, my hands are doing these crazy things. But it was some years later when it fully activated. So yes, it's I think you have to learn all the tools around it in terms of helping to hold space for people, to take them through those meditations. And that's something I've done over years of, I did past life regression and hypnotherapy. And so learning those tools, but the actual dialects are something that it unfolds from within me. So yes.
I think when we first met, you were like, you're a doctor, I'm a spiritual healer. What are we doing in the same room? And that was interesting, isn't it? Because we had this conversation where I was saying to you that, we don't know half of it, like humanity and us as spirits or beings or traditional medicine is there. It's good. It's useful. It's pushing us forward science-wise, and it's absolutely necessary. But there's this other realm aspect that I hadn't experienced quite a lot of until I met you, and I didn't know anybody like you. But you were like, why am I in this conversation with an actual clinical medicine person? But I get it. I get the fact that there is more to us than just our skin, flesh and bones. Were you scared making this transition from normal estate agent manager situation to...
Not at all, actually, because it was such a strong feeling within me.
Yeah.
And I'm just in the process of making another huge transition right now. And because I feel very guided by spirit, my team, my guides. And when I know I have to do something, it becomes so overwhelmingly loud within me that it actually overtakes any fear. And it hasn't been easy, because when you start to when you've never run your own business and you suddenly do that, you recognize there's so many things that you didn't even know that you had to know.
Exactly.
And I still, you're still learning every day, and there's bits that I enjoy and there's bits that I really don't. And sometimes it actually gets to the point where you're doing more of the running the business than doing the work, because it becomes it overtakes if you're not careful. So but I've never had any fear with it, because I've always known that this was my path, and it feels like such a calling. It is not something where I had to sit and think, should I do that or that? It was, I have to do this. I have to do this.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast is about passion and purpose, basically, right? So when we feel the passion and the calling driving us towards something, to make a step towards that calling can for some people be quite scary.
Absolutely.
Because obviously you're fact checking everything else. Would I be able to pay my bills? There's quite a lot of noise. If I was in that situation, for instance, what would you say to me? What should I do?
So I would say that whenever you get something really strong inside of you, it's very difficult, because I know I can look back at some points where those choices to make a leap haven't been so clear. And at that time, I think we all, as humans, change is a bit of a scary thing, because we don't know what we're stepping into. And even if a situation is uncomfortable or difficult for us, it's better the devil you know sometimes, because we get it's like, well, we at least, even if that's not so great, but what happens if? And from my perspective, the universe is very good at giving us the signs, and sometimes we choose to ignore them until it gets so loud that it actually becomes really uncomfortable to stay in that space. And so I would say that the more that you listen to your inner guidance, and I don't mean that like in a way where you're disregarding any logic, because you do have to bring in some level of planning and awareness around how you're going to do things and pay the bills, because otherwise, we'd all be just doing whatever. But if you've got that real strong passion to do something, I would say really embrace it and do the best you can to figure out how you can do it. And usually when you make that inner change within yourself, doors open that you didn't even expect to happen.
I do agree with that.
You have to have the space, don't you, in your life. So I remember, because I'm a big believer in the universe and follow the universe, and got some lovely stories. But one of the things I do remember is, if you wanted a new car, what you should do really is move your car off your drive and put it somewhere else, because actually there's no space for a new car until you move that. So actually taking wherever you want to go think about, I need to open up that space. So if it's a relationship or whatever, don't think, oh, I really, really need it. Actually just make yourself free and available, and that space will be filled with the right thing.
Because the universe hates a vacuum.
Yes.
This is what I think. That's metaphysical, that's physical, that is scientific, whatever. It does not like vacuum. So for me, I feel like the more, and I do this quite a lot with sort of things like generosity, the more you give of your time, you release, you make space, and then more come to you because you've moved, like, this what I mean?
Energy is
created, and then something else comes and fills that space, and it's usually something better and at least equivalent, but better. So I do believe that the universe doesn't like a vacuum, and in whatever, you know, as realm or aspect that you look at it, and that actually mentally and physically creating opportunities for yourself does count, because once you do that and make yourself more accessible or open to something, that thing comes along.
Often people will say, well, why aren't things manifesting in my life? And it's because you don't believe that they will. And it's that trust in yourself that aligns you to the energy, because I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Esther and Jerry Hicks and Abraham. So Jerry Hicks isn't with us anymore, but they channel a being called Abraham, and they're probably the most famous manifestation guides, essentially. And what they always talk about is that anything that you think about, you're creating as a vortex in your energy field. It's somewhere in that vortex. Everything is there that you choose to have. What stops us from having it is not that we can't have it because the universe won't let us. It's because we are not aligning ourselves to it, by blocking us, thinking that we're not worthy of it, that we have to work hard to get to it. And every time we have a positive thought moving forwards, and then we have negative doubts about ourselves, we're continually doing this energetic backwards and forwards. And so it's really about having that trust and faith and belief. And the universe works around you. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And what you send out is what you're going to attract. So this is why we need to be mindful of our thoughts. But it's deeper than that, because our thoughts are one level of our consciousness. As we know, our subconscious mind is 90% of our thoughts are in our unconscious. And most of our programs are running in our subconscious, which is why doing this work to clear all of that helps you to shift that which shifts your life. Because by clearing out those patterns that are no longer serving you in your subconscious, you do exactly what you were talking about, which is you create the space for something new to come in, which is a higher frequency. So this is where you can start to bring things towards you.
About maybe 3 years ago, I would never, ever have known anybody like you. I wouldn't know how to find a spiritual guide that I can trust, even if I was moving towards that and wanting that awakening. Because I know a lot of people will be listening and thinking, well, I do feel cluttered. Maybe I could access some help with this. And I would highly recommend that if you're feeling that way, that you should, like everything else, like going to your GP or your doctor or your therapist, if you feel the energy is different and you could benefit from this, then it makes sense to reach out to somebody like you, Sandra, who can help. So me 3 years ago, sitting there thinking, okay, maybe I could do this. Where would I start to find somebody like you? This is what I mean. Where would I start? How would I know which website to go to, which church? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on how you would want to approach it, because as we've said, everybody is different in terms of what is going to resonate with them. And some people might be really drawn to the angelic realm. Some people might be really drawn to past lives, numerology. It could be anything. So which is one of the reasons why I created Blue Pool, the online platform, because there's a diverse range of facilitators. And so we have lots of different recordings on there. So it's a tool. There's a tool there that you've got lots of information there, which could, so if you're starting this, the reason why it's helpful is because there's all sorts of different things. And so you can dip into it. But that's great if you want something online. But if you're looking for something which is more in person, then have a look for spiritual churches, spiritualist churches, development groups, things like crystal sound bowl healings, things like that, where there'll be centers that do all of these things. And really it's just about exploring and finding what works for you. And the one of the reasons why we did what we did with Blue Pool is because I remember when I was on my journey, the other thing is reading. I read
Reading,
all the
yeah,
time.
I'm
I
a
read
fan
so
of
many
books,
different books.
yeah.
There's thousands of books. But it's quite difficult when you're trying to figure it all out. And sometimes you don't know where to start. And so the reason why I created the platform that I did was because I knew that every therapist there was really heart-led, was coming from a really authentic space. Yeah. And like with anything, there's good and there's good, bad and indifferent. And so it's like, where do you start to find somebody you can trust? Yeah. So, and there's many people. So really trust your discernment and just see what works for you, really, and what you're drawn to.
Yeah. You host events as well. So, finding a good event that you can just go in and explore. And again, it's about once you step into those sort of spaces, the connections start and then you can build from there. And if it's not for you, then you can, but at least you've had that one sort of exposure. It's better than nothing at all, isn't it? Yes. It's better than nothing at all.
It's a bit like Checker Trader for spiritualism.
In a way, yes.
Because you're actually just offering a directory of various different people that people can go. And I think with anything like this, with energy, you need to resonate with that person as well, don't you? And you should be feeling that it's good for you and that it works for you, because not everybody will be, we're all different, aren't we? Entirely different. And our energies are entirely different. So
today's episode of Beyond 9 to 5 is brought to you by Health Mary. Ladies, let me introduce you to Health Mary app, the ultimate girl power health platform built for women by women. Connect with trusted female health practitioners who understand your unique needs. From fitness and menopause coaching to skin and nutrition, expert consultations are just a tap away. Health Mary interviews and screens every single one of their practitioners, so you can know that they are the best in the business of looking after you. The app isn't just a directory for finding the best female specialists. The Reels feature gives you instant access to a wealth of qualified content posted on the app by the top-notch professionals on there. This is not social media type of content. This is like a digital health magazine in your hands and on the go. And the best part is that it's free to download and join. So what are you waiting for, girl? Download the app and unleash the girl power inside to enhance your health and well-being. Do you have kids?
I do.
Okay. How old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
So I have 2 boys and 3 stepchildren, who are 2 girls and a boy. So my eldest, my 2 boys are 27. Yes, he's just turned 27 because it was end of November. 27 and 34. 34. And my stepchildren are just turned 24 up to 33, I think.
Right.
So
basically a grown-up family.
Blended family,
Blended
similar
family.
to me actually. Similar, which is great. I love it. I have 2 stepchildren and 2 of my own, similar ages. So it is really lovely.
When is it a good time to get children into mindfulness and, awakening and spiritual journeys? How?
So I would say that children come in to teach us. They already know, and we just don't listen.
Yeah.
That
is, in fact, quite true.
And what we do is we try to impose our perspectives on the children, but actually I feel that, it's a whole different topic, but I feel that we really need to be listening to the children and stop trying to put square pegs into round holes. And this is why we've got so many problems right now, is that children don't have the space to flourish. And if they had the ability to work with their imaginations, to connect with their emotions, if we can start off children as literally from the moment they're born, being able to express themselves, be healthy with their emotions, be creative with their imaginations, and not forced to sit behind a desk and have to do things at a certain age, I think we would have a very, very different society, because the children would actually come in they come in with so much light, and we're going through such a huge transition right now. There are children coming in, which is why I'm stepping into the doula work that I'm doing, because the children that are coming in are of a very high frequency, and they're really coming in to change things and to show us a different way. We're evolving at a rapid rate right now, and they're coming in as the way showers, but of course society isn't really ready to listen to them yet. But if we as parents can really listen to them, nurture them, help them to emotionally regulate, and to be in this reality without it breaking them, because we can see how much dysfunction there is with children right now, with the a lot of issues with mental health and schools, and there's a lot of problems. But I really believe that if we started to listen to the children and really allow them to show the way with boundaries and structure, of course, I really feel that we would have a very different society.
Yeah, because parenting is quite difficult, right? And we want to, in a way, prepare them for the world coming, the world outside. Sometimes I say that to my kids, look, you to prepare you for the world you're going to be exploring, especially when they become grown-ups. And it's the challenge there is to prepare them enough, isn't it, without changing them fundamentally.
Yeah.
And none of us came with the manual for that, right? I sometimes wonder whether I know what I'm doing. Is this the right way to raise them or not? What will be the indicators? Not that you're a parent, I don't appreciate it, but what will be the indicators within a home, for instance? Mom, dad, or mom with 3 children or 2 children, that you're getting the balance right. How would the children be looking or feeling or behaving that tells you that, okay, you're okay?
I mean, this is purely as a parent.
I know, right? That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean,
Lou, you've got kids as well. So there's 3 of us together. We have going on like almost 100 years combined experience. So I think we can talk about this. Yeah.
So I know that when I look back, I made a lot of mistakes parenting with my children. If I was to wind the clock back, would I do it different? Absolutely, I would do things very differently. I would be much more. I would listen to them much more, be much more aware of what they were showing me, and not follow the books so much, because there were things that it was like, this is what you do, and you have this situation, this is how you should do it. But actually, there were times when every part of me was thinking, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel aligned at all. I really feel that you need to really trust yourself and listen to your own intuition about how to raise your children. It's not about what other people tell you as to what's right and wrong. You know your child better than anybody. So really just trust yourself that you know your child and you'll know what your child needs. And I think when you have a child, and it's not about suppressing anger or suppressing those emotions that we perceive as negative, they're normal human emotions. It's learning how to process them, how to actually navigate when you have those emotions coming up. How do you handle them safely and in a way that isn't harmful or projecting out to others that hurts them because you're lashing out. It's how to help children to navigate their emotions. And I think if you've got a family, family dynamics are always tricky. It's never going to be
changing.
An easy ride.
Just when you think you've got it right, people grow up and change and evolve. So it's a work in progress.
And school is a structure, a very rigid structure, isn't it?
Yeah.
That actually is really focused on mainly academia.
Yes.
And what percentage of the population is academic?
No, exactly.
It's quite minimal, isn't it? So actually there's so much more that I think we can teach them that are life skills that they would then go on and be better people and not feel rubbish about, I'm not academic, I'm just rubbish.
See, the challenge there is that they literally spend 80% of their time at school. If you think about it, we have the weekends, isn't it? But Monday to Friday, their whole waking hours is spent at school. So, and I know, at least here in the UK, there's a lot of work going into doing things slightly differently and it's evolving. But as a parent, I'm very mindful that they spend a lot of time in school. And so the weekends are really my time to kind of balance out, right? And they've got good stuff at school. They've learned, they've been educated, they've been structured and all of that. But focusing on the experiences we have as a family from about 5 o'clock beyond 9 to 5. and the weekend became more and more important to me over the years. And I don't think I've still got it right completely, but just my own progression from maybe 5 years ago, when it was like weekend, running around, but purposefully now slowing things down at the weekend, just so they have that other input from us.
It really struck me this year. I went to the New Forest and we have a new camper van, so it's very simple, and I absolutely love it. But how families leave their very lovely houses with all the mod cons, and for 2 weeks of their precious time they go and live in a tent and they have to find their own water and they have to find their food and they have to cook on a little fire that doesn't normally work. They get wet, they get cold, but they are happy.
Yeah.
And we just seem to have lost sight of that simplicity that life offers us, because we're constantly chasing. Is it social media? Is it expectations that society says you need to get this, so we need to earn more, we need to get a bigger car, we need to do this, we need to, all the schools, offer so many different clubs. We're just constantly chasing. And it is a massive learning curve for me. And I definitely am on that path. But it's taken a while because society expects you to do so much.
Yeah.
I think it's changing. I think that there are people now starting to look at it and say, hang on a minute.
Yes.
Why are we doing this? And I was with some friends yesterday who I ran a retreat in the summer in Glastonbury. And we met there, and it was a group of women, and we've all got on so well that since then we've still regularly come together. We were talking about community living, and a friend of mine at the moment is going out to Belgium for a few weeks because some people have bought a chateau in Belgium, and it's a husband and wife who are therapists, and they are opening up as a community living space because more people now are starting to think, I don't want to be in this
rat race
anymore.
Hamster wheel.
In the hamster wheel. And there are options. There are now opportunities opening up for a different way of coming together. And I think community is such an important part of that in so many ways. Because as women, we've been, we have our children. We're on our own. It used to be that you'd have your whole family unit around you, but of course that isn't the case anymore. So you feel isolated, and then your poor husband or partner is expected to carry all of your emotional burden because there's nobody else to do it. And so the pressure on a family dynamic is almost doomed to fail before it started because there's not enough support and there's not enough community. And somehow I really believe we need to come back more into having this local support, local communities that we can be there for each other, especially at important times of life, where like when there is childbirth or when families need it because of sickness or whatever is going on. And just generally for the family unit, it's good to have more of an extended family or extended. It's not how it used to be. The grandmothers would always be part of the families, but people don't live close to their families anymore. So I think if we come back to this more simplistic way of living, and there's no magic answer for that, because you do have to, in order to make that choice, you either need to have enough money to step away, or you have to be stepping away from some of the things that you might choose to. You've always identified as being successful. So it is a big
changing
shift,
your priorities.
Changing priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
And you're working with women more directly now. Tell me about that.
So yes, it's been a bit of a journey actually, because the work I'd done as a therapist and healer myself was always for anybody that was stepping into their purpose, wanting to really clear these limiting beliefs and patterns, and doing the upgrading of them to create a more of a joyful, abundant life. Jade, who works with me, is pregnant. She's due in January, and we work on each other. She's a breathwork facilitator, and so as well as working with me on the sort of more administrative side, we've also run things together. And I did a session for her because we were doing swaps, and during this session, she was then about 6 weeks pregnant. So very, very early on, I started to get information through about the baby, and we would recognize that I was actually doing the healing for the baby. It wasn't something that I knew was going to happen when I start the session, because every session that I do is channeled. So until I start, I don't know what's going to come. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then as the pregnancy progressed, we continued, and I started to get a lot of information through about how important it is right now to work. Initially, it was with pregnant women. And so I thought that my journey would be to work with pregnant women through this is why I did my doula training, because I thought that would be what it is, but it's sort of unfolded into something slightly different now. And that what I've recognized I'm doing is aligning the energy of the baby to the energy of the mother and the partner. So that, because when we're coming in as a soul, the physical baby is created, and then the soul of the baby comes in at certain points, comes and goes. And that soul will have had lifetimes, and so will have its own karma and traumas from previous lifetimes to clear. So what I've been doing is working. There's an etheric umbilical cord that connects you to your soul, essentially. And I've been working with clearing that for the baby before they're coming in, and then aligning the energy of the mother so that the mother and the baby's energy is more aligned, so that there's more likelihood that the baby can come in and be able to step into a path, which is what they're really choosing to come in for.
Without any obstacles.
With less obstacles. And also doing family sessions with the partner father as well, to align all of their energies. But then I recognize that actually this is not just for just pregnant women, because it's also about women who've gone through, and the word that always comes up is subjugation. So it's that this has been ancestral, this is generational, this is something that, because we've lived in this patriarchal society, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a feminist that says, because I actually think that men have had it really tough as well.
They are having it really
difficult.
Yeah.
But that's not, because I'm not a man, I know that I'm much better placed in helping women to reclaim their voice, their power,
Yep.
And be able to step into their be in their lives in a way that they feel that they've got authority, and not authority over others, but just their voice. They're feeling that they actually belong in their own skin and more comfortable with what they're doing. And we're here for this human experience. And so if I can do something to help women to reclaim their voice, to step into more alignment with their truth, then they're much more likely to have a happier, more joyful, more abundant, and aligned life. So it's all of that.
And also because women are primarily carers, whether you're a mum or, you're looking after a parent, and that power is important, isn't it? Because we are responsible, so to speak, for a lot of people around us. And we're just talking about children and bringing them into a more spiritual, self-aware path. Well, we need to be more aware. We need to be more empowered and stronger to be able to guide these souls coming in through us on their journey here. So,
exactly,
I mean, what you're doing makes absolute sense. I mean, even because I can imagine the family with the mom, the dad, and the baby, or maybe other children there, coming together with this one purpose to feel and be better.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win, it's a win-win. It's you've already in a way connected all of them together and bound them together in this journey. I mean, what a beautiful picture I have in my head right now about this family coming together around you, supporting them to evolve and get better.
If we haven't had children yet, or we're mothers or grandmothers, it doesn't matter at what point you do this work, because it still has the influence over everybody around you, because when you work on yourselves, it has an impact on everybody that surrounds you, and even you're working ancestrally as well. So when we do this energy healing and we're working with the way that we are, we're clearing our ancestral lines 7 generations back, and we hold the mitochondrial DNA of mitochondrial Eve. So we're holding all of that information of all of that female line right the way back to the point of creation. And so everything is within us. And when we understand about the fact that within our bodies we hold the eggs of our grandmother, it's like this, all of this, it's just fascinating that we are so much more than this one person in this, it's just such room right now. And when we really step into that and honor that and find our voice, and we do that. And I think one of the big things that I think needs to be aware of is that as women, we're almost taught that if we put ourselves first, it's selfish. But actually, that's the most important thing that we can do, is to look after ourselves, do that work, look after ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that we have the cup flowing over, rather than giving from a place of lack, where we just are wrung, like, exhausted, with nothing left. And so many of us are overgivers. We're always giving to others, but in order to really support and nurture our families, our communities, and for things to shift, we need to come back to ourselves and really prioritize our own well-being, because that has the biggest effect on everybody else. Exactly.
There was a very profound statement that the lady over the weekend gave to me when I was going through my training. And she said, I want you to think of your inner child. And I have a photo of me as a little girl, age 6, and I'm there and I have a daisy and I'm looking at the daisy. So that photo of me was there and it was in me. And she said, now I want you to love that inner child. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that, because we all love a little one, don't we? So suddenly I'm actually that inner child and I'm learning to love me. So if you can't love yourself as you are now, love who you were as that real innocent being, to allow you to actually go, am I doing the best for that little inner child in there? Because that's, as mothers, that's what we want to do. Generally, we want to protect. So actually, if you can protect yourself as who you were rather than who you are now, then maybe that becomes an easier way of thinking. And it definitely, for me, I was like, it actually made me cry. You know, when your tears roll down and they end up in your ears. You're like, oh, I have water in my ears now. Because suddenly I'm like, actually, I don't think I do the best for that little girl inside me. And how important was that? So that was a real turning point for me.
Sandra, do you volunteer or do any charity work?
So I don't volunteer, but I am very connected to 2 charities. One is a charity called Mount Lodge Farm, which is my son goes to Mount Lodge Farm. It's a care farm, and so it's for people that have learning difficulties or and also they have young farmers there for children that maybe are in foster care, and it's absolutely incredible.
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, it's so good.
Would you send me the link so that we can share with our viewers in case they want to contribute? That sounds amazing.
It's amazing, and I really support them with everything that they do, because with my eldest, he really struggled with some mental health issues, and they have worked wonders with him in terms of his confidence has massively grown, and he's been going there now for the last 3 years, and he goes 3 days a week, and it's the lady that runs it is phenomenal. So I know how impactful that work is, and just being with the animals and just being able to connect with nature, it's just so absolutely incredible. So I'm an absolute advocate of that charity, and
sounds fabulous. I know, lovely. Right? Where are they based?
They're in Biddenden.
Okay, not too far then either.
Yeah, is that in Kent?
Yes.
What incredible work. Because again, mental health is something that, you don't look at somebody and see that you can, if you had a physical injury, you would see, plasters and bandages and things, but mental health is very different, isn't it? And what I generally say is, just approach people with kindness and love. And I think that this woman who's running this charity is just amazing, having a facility or a platform to embrace other people who are having sort of challenges in that way. It's just
and animals give off so much energy, positive energy.
They're a bit like children, isn't it? They come with a lot of look at me,
unconditional love, isn't it?
Probably the clinical scientific people would be like, "What is wrong with Dr. Odenis today?" They'd be like, "Animals are like children." Oh God. Anyway, but you know what I mean. They and I have had that experience, because we went on where did we go? Somewhere in Surrey, and we went to this equestrian place to look at horses. I didn't know I loved horses until I met one for real, and it was just this massive energy, solid groundingness about that horse. I just felt cool and calm, and it was just nice. So and one of the instructors there does therapy, animal therapy with young people who have who are suffering with anxiety, and I totally got it. Totally got it.
That's how the therapy dogs work in school. Do you have much dealings with animals in your practice? Like, do you have therapists that work with animals?
Yes, there's actually a lady who is very connected to, or what's it called, the Kent Equine. I forget exactly the name of the company, but basically that's in Horton Kirby Way, and there is they do the same thing. They do animal healing. They've got horses there, and they have people coming in and supporting with the horses, and they do a phenomenal
it's amazing
work there.
I can see it's and I think that when ordinary people, and I say ordinary people knowing that this ordinary ordinarily extraordinary people every day is what this podcast is about, isn't it? Just to bring us to the microphone so that we can tell people about the amazing work that goes on, quieter but equally powerful work and people all around us. And, having this conversation does help bring it out so that people are aware. It's inspiring and people are aware that we're not alone. Beautiful, wonderful, powerful things are happening. Just open your window and look outside. You'll see it. If we open our windows and look outside, we will see.
Yeah. I think this is the thing, is that now you can't tackle change head on anymore. It's if we want to see a different world, we need to create it.
We'll make it, yeah.
And so we do that by each of us doing whatever we feel called to do. And it's different for everybody. It's our own unique essence that's going to create that change.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's different for everybody, because otherwise we'll all be doing the same thing. But you're absolutely right. It's about us wanting to make that change, start from within and then create the change that we want to see, isn't it?
But it's about giving people that safe space as well, isn't it? Because this kind of area of life, I call it woo-woo. It's very, people don't really understand it because there's nothing physical, there's no evidence to it, but it's a feeling. And it's allowing people, and I know I felt at the weekend, that space to absorb, to be, to release. But if they haven't got that space and they haven't got that time, they're not being, not allowing themselves to get to that point. So you're offering such a valuable, safe space, isn't it, for people to experience that?
I would say people should go to Blue Pool. Is it bluepoolnetwork.com?
Awakening.
Bluepoolawakening.com. The link will be in the podcast blurb. I'm still calling it blurb. Is it podcast? Nikki, what
content,
is it?
detail.
What? The description down below. I hate that word, down below, but that's what most people say. So if you go to the description down below, you will see the link to. And what I would say is book one, session, book an event, and just go. If nothing, it will be something completely different from what you'd normally do, and you will meet one new person in your life that you didn't know the day before, who is just a beautiful soul who's ready to connect with you. So I asked you to bring in your favorite book. I'm glad that you're a reader. I love reading. We had a guest the other day who also loves reading. For all of our guests are readers, and how books allow you to kind of escape and explore and learn and grow. So what's your favorite book? What you bring? Can't wait.
It's actually a book that I'm still in the process of reading, actually, but even the first half that I've read, I feel like every woman should read it. It's called Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage. And the reason why this is so fascinating is that history, which is his story, and what she does is she explains her story through the ages as to why it is that it's like how we've got here in terms of the way that children are now born. But it's more than just about the children. It's about and the birth. It's about the understanding of how society and how we've evolved as women through the ages. And I found it absolutely fascinating to understand all of this from a very different perspective, because of course most history we hear is all from a male perspective because it's all been men that have written the books.
Yes, of course.
The history books. But this is somebody who's done a lot of research. And fascinating information, like, for example, the word gossip. The women that used to go and support at birth were called the godsips. But it used to be that women just used to go, they used to push the men outside, basically. They'd go behind closed doors. But the men were always wondering what was going on there. So gossip became what they were talking about. And so it became a negative term. But actually, it was the women that used to come together to support, like the doulas, essentially, the birth doulas, the ones that, not the midwives as such, but the ones that would support and help. And apparently they had a jolly old time. They used to mostly have a bit of a party.
I know.
Fabulous.
Wow. I mean, this is really interesting, because it says here, reclaiming childbirth as a rite of passage requires us to recognize that mothers own the power and expertise when it comes to birthing their babies. This looks like an interesting book. I have been asking all of my guests for their favorite book with the intention to read every single one of them.
That's quite a big ask.
It's
a big book. Yeah.
It's like, okay, but I'm nothing if not up to a challenge. And I love a good book. And this looks really, really interesting. So every episode, we ask our guests to write down and advice they'll like us to pass on to the next guest. But first, you listen to the advice that was given by the guest before you, and then we can just have a chat about it and reflect on it.
Okay.
See, what have we got?
Are
Lou?
you ready? If you don't maintain it, you won't retain it. Shall I say that again?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you don't maintain it, you won't retain it.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, isn't it? Maintenance.
Very interesting. Yeah. Because often we can not necessarily focus on those things and start to take things for granted.
Yeah.
And then relationships, because we get busy and start to take our focus away. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I think maintaining already implies that you are aware you have that thing. You value that thing, be it a relationship, your health, your
Heart.
your heart,
Yeah.
your
Your
car.
ear.
We're really good with the car thing, isn't it? Every single year there's an MOT, right? And we love our car and we insure our cars, and if we get a scratch, we freak out and cuss out the person who's just scratched your car. I think we love our cars for some reason. But yes, it's about acknowledging that you have that thing, and in order to recognize that you need to maintain it. And when we do maintain it, just like our cars, I keep saying our cars, but you get my point. We then you're more likely to retain it, isn't it? And the value just goes up just because we're giving it that much extra care.
It's about, yes, as you say, it's about valuing it. And in your line of work, it's actually about acknowledging the value of you
Totally.
and everything around you, and then investing in you, and then maintain it, because you can't just, I've done that bit, that's it, I'm
It's a
done now.
lifetime job.
It's a lifetime job.
Lifetime job. Yeah. Okay, so this has been, as promised, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra, for coming to join us today.
Thank you so much.
And my fabulous co-host, Lou Hayes, has been here with me today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I am so grateful for you all listening. If you listen, share, subscribe, whatever it is you do, push the button down below, because it does help us to continue to make more episodes, and it does help us to get these inspiring stories to you and to more and more women out there. Until the next time, keep your purpose front and center and your passion burning brightly, my girls. Next time. All right? Mwah. Take care.